What's up, y'all? I'm back with another show for y'all, and of course, this one is going to be interesting because I don't know if you're political or not. Me, myself, I just started to do my research on politics. I've never been a political person. Growing up, I wasn't taught much about politics. Of course, school teaches you what's in the books, but I wasn't actually taught about real politics. And so I didn't know anything about politics or the importance of. And it wasn't until later on in life where I decided, you know what? Maybe I should dive into the world of politics and see exactly what it's about, because I could see that it affects us, or it affects our day-to-day living. It does. Whether you know it or you don't, it really does. And so I implore you, if you're not a political person, you may want to start doing your research on politics so that you can learn about the people who are basically running your communities, the people who are running your states, the people who's running the country. And of course, we all say that there are parties behind the scenes that are, that have their fingers, they're using people as puppets. Yes, you may say that, but at the same time, it wouldn't hurt you to learn about both parties, to learn about the third party, to learn about Congress, to learn about the judicial branch, all of that. There's a lot that comes to politics that you may not know about. And so if you're not learning about it, well, we're going to have a conversation today about a little bit of politics, which I usually say you never discuss on the first date. But this ain't a date. We are about to watch Officer Tatum debate liberals on the left on certain issues that are plaguing the black community. Now, Officer Tatum also has a partner on this show, so it is two liberals versus two conservatives, and they are discussing the issues that black people deal with on a day-to-day basis, including gentrification. And before we continue, I need y'all to do three things for me. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and share this video so someone else can do the very same thing. And if they don't, then we're going to send Officer Tatum after them. Now, I don't want to hold y'all up too much. Let's get into this video and see what they have to say about these subjects, because we know that the black community has a lot of issues as well as other communities, but we're going to focus on the black community for this video.
Really embrace what goes forth from this moment forward. Our first question for today. The One Big Beautiful Bill has been signed, and that has made the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act now permanent. Here's the first question. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act includes opportunity zones aimed at revitalizing underserved communities. Do you, starting with the right, do you believe these policies created meaningful changes in urban black areas, or have they benefited outside investors more than local residents? I'll start with you, Gothics.
To be honest, I don't know much about opportunity zones, so I'm gonna pass this to you.
Well, I think I'll touch on this real quick. I think that the opportunity that it affords to people, no matter what race or color you are, is tax cuts. Tax cuts benefit people who are functioning in the system that we're in capitalism. A lot of people somehow in their mind, they think the tax cuts only affect big corporations and people with a bunch of money. But the last time I checked, black people have corporations and black people have money too. And so just making sure that those tax cuts didn't expire, which if they had expired would cause one of the greatest tax increases of the middle class that we've seen in a while. I think that's one of the things that I like that Donald Trump, at least the Republicans, have passed through that bill, and Donald Trump signed into law.
Thank you. Thank you. Responses? Maria?
Opportunity zones are not just tied to tax cuts, they are tied to development. I can speak for my particular demographic in terms of where I'm from in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Hamilton County, Tennessee. We had our county mayor utilize black census tracts and overdevelop those areas And in the next 5 years following the original Opportunity Zones, we actually had a study that we published where our specific Southside districts and zip codes for the city of Chattanooga are some of the fastest gentrified zip codes in the country. So we had a large displacement of African Americans in our city, and we have seen a stark decline of African Americans in these specific areas through development and not just tax cuts.
Thank you. You said no comment, Mr. Reed. Any particular reason why you don't want to comment on that particular question?
Well, number one, I don't comment on things that I don't necessarily know much about. What I can tell you is this, to my sister's point, one of the things that I see as it relates to gentrification, as it relates to redline and so on and so forth, is the notion of institutional biases and also systemic issues that continue to oppress communities, whether they're black, brown, and or poor white communities, and really uplift the elitists.
Brandon, go
I
ahead.
just want to add to this. People a lot of times make gentrification out to be this inherently negative thing towards black communities. If corporations or people with money are going into the community to buy property, who are they buying the property from? They're buying the property from black people who own property there that have decided to sell their property at a profit. So it's not necessarily bad that there are corporations or money being interjected into these communities that make the community property value go up, but it also benefits the people that live there to a certain degree. I can see the argument where people are saying that it displaced a lot of black people in certain communities, but listen, that's capitalism. I think that a lot of black people benefit from it as well. If you have money, you have resources, you either sell your resources to make money or you can invest in your own community. Why in the world is it always the case where we're talking about black people or white people that are gentrifying areas? Why don't black people who got money, who have businesses, reinvest in their own communities? We're always looking at white people and blaming them for what they're doing to innovate communities to make money and make them better. Why don't we do that to our own communities? The problem is we don't spend in our own communities. We don't reinvest in our own communities, but yet we complain when others do.
Yeah, I just...
Wait. Before you go ahead, that's the perfect segue into our next question, and it'll start off with you, Mr. Reed. What is the single greatest threat to economic advancement in Black America today? And is it structural, is it cultural, or is it policy driven?
There is no single break.
Now, I'm going to keep it 1,000 with y'all, as I always do, right? Here's something that we have to think about. Officer Tatum just touched on why some black, let's say millionaires, you know, people, black people who are well off, they may be rich, why they don't come back and invest in the black community, in the black towns, in the black cities, or in the black neighborhoods. Here's the reason why. It is because, for the most part, and I'm going to keep it 1,000 with y'all. Sometimes I say what you don't want to hear, but it needs to be said. If you have someone come in and buy a certain neighborhood, and it's mostly black folks there, based on how that neighborhood looked to begin with, is exactly how that neighborhood is going to turn out if you allow the same people to live there. Oh, I know. I just triggered some people. It's cool. It's cool. Grab some popcorn and sit back because we have a lot to talk about. But I'm just being honest with you. If you let the same people who lived in that neighborhood, based on how that neighborhood looked, if you allow them, let's say you invest your money in this neighborhood, you tear down some of the houses, some of the old houses, some of the buildings, you build new ones, right? Clean it up. Beautiful. And you allow the same people who ran their neighborhood into the gutter to live there, guess what's going to happen to your investment? You might as well kiss it goodbye. You should have invested in something else. See, this is the reason why. And for the most part with gentrification, when a person of means buys an entire neighborhood, right? And let's say they tear it down, or they don't even tear the neighborhood down. They renovate some of the houses. The rent goes up. Yes, the rent goes up. I'm sorry. That's how it goes. The rent goes up. And honestly, that is one way for a person to weed out or actually discriminate. Well, can you even say it's discrimination if I own that property and I increase the rent? Can you say that's discrimination because I don't want a certain group? Well, yeah, I guess you can say it's discrimination because if you don't want a certain group, well, again, if it's a certain group without money, like let's say a black person comes to you with money and wants to, your rent is two G's, $2,000 a month, and the black person comes and says he can pay it, and you allow that person to live there. Is that discriminating? Do y'all see where I'm headed with this? And so a person who doesn't make that much money that can't afford to stay there, they have to be displaced. And that's exactly what happens in some of these neighborhoods. That's why it's called gentrification, because now you have a certain type of person who starts to move in to those neighborhoods. And then they start displacing people who can't afford the rent there because the rent has been increased.
This threat when it comes to black folks.
Okay.
There's no single greatest threat. I think that we have a myriad of issues that we have been inundated by, we have been exacerbated by, and we don't have the luxury of identifying one thing. To your point, to your question, we have a trichotomy by which we have to deal with.
Okay, thank you. Brandon or Gothics?
To be honest, I agree that I don't think it's a singular issue. But I would say that I can trace a lot of the problems economically in the black community back to having a lack of direction and a lack of identity. And I think within the black community, people on a cultural level tend to handle their money in ways that aren't actually good for building wealth. And so personally, I think if you have some structure and you have a worldview that points in one singular direction, you're gonna see a betterment in the economy, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that by saying that when you look at the single most issue, I think it has to be culture. Because everybody that's honest with themselves know, and I'm not saying every black person, because when I talk about the black community, I'm not talking about black people as a whole, I'm talking about communities that are predominantly black. Because there's black people all over the country that live in different communities that have a different mindset. But these communities that are primarily black, populated, when I was growing up, and I think I can speak for a lot of other people, there was no value placed in credit score. There was no value placed in investments. And a lot of times we were taught that we don't have a place in America, that we are not equal to anyone else. If you go to a bank, you won't get a loan. As if there's this perpetual state of black people being held down by the system to where black people didn't even activate on things that they had the potential to activate on. So most of it is culture, the culture of violence. When I was a police officer and I patrolled in white neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, and patrolled in black neighborhoods that were poor, there's a big difference between poor white, poor black. And one of the differences is violence. I do not know of a gang of Crips and Bloods in the white community. I'm just being honest. There's no Crips and Bloods in the white community. If you go to Chicago, Illinois, and you looked at the shootings that occurred over the 4th of July weekend, I'm talking 40, 50 people shot, 20 people killed. In Philly, drive-by shooting with 15 people, I think, were seriously injured, a few of them killed. You don't see this same type of violence in white neighborhoods. And that is a cultural phenomenon that I think hurts black communities a lot.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay, so I see from Mr. Reed, and then Maria.
Yeah, well, number one, I don't know what neighborhoods that you, former officer Tatum has patrolled in, but where I come from, I know a whole bunch of Crips, I know a whole bunch of Bloods, I know a whole bunch of local high-risk groups that are in white neighborhoods. If you've ever been in Little Rock, Arkansas, if you've ever gone to New Haven, Connecticut, if you've ever gone to places that are outside of Chicago, outside of Philadelphia, outside of Compton, you will see that there is a permeation of a spirit that is trying to kill people everywhere.
Hold on.
Wait. Let me finish my point, my brother.
Okay.
So there is a spirit that is out to kill people everywhere. That's number one. The second thing is that the folks who actually are in a crowd who actually applauded there not having been gangs in their neighborhood probably don't come from neighborhoods where there actually gangs are. I know very serious risk groups. I know people, young men and women who in effect are involved in gangs. Now, they may not be as organized as the Bloods. They may not be as organized as the Crips. They may not be as organized as the Latin Kings, so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that they do exist.
Well, let me
And
ask
I can tell you this because I did 14 years in federal prison, and I was locked up with many of those individuals as well.
Okay, thank you. 1 second, Brandon. Maria, want to answer that? Maria, want to answer that?
Can you ask the question?
Yes. What is the single greatest threat to economic advancement in Black America today? And is it structural, cultural, or policy-driven?
I think it's all three, but I think if we were to sum it up in terms of the greatest threat to our community, it is ignorance of a lot of things. We have in our own families and in our community dysfunction. We do have institutional barriers that are very real. And at the same time, we have a lot of things that are going on. So like a perfect example in terms of ignorance, TBI statistical data for the state of Tennessee says that the largest violence that happens in our state is sexual violence, and the clearance rate for the Chattanooga Police Department is 8%. What is the lowest number of violence in our community? It's murder. But what is the clearance rate for that? 97%. So if you have a rape, a sexual assault, the statistical likelihood is that nothing is going to happen for you. But if you are murdered, there's a statistical likelihood, especially if you're coming from my community, that you're going to be caught. So I have to say from police data, because that's where I got that from, the TBI categorizes data for the entire state and every police department in our state. We're not dealing with all forms of violence. We prioritize in our conversation certain types of violence based on the demographic and the people that we're talking about. But you can continue.
All right, please.
Brandon,
thank you.
go
Thank
ahead.
you. I cannot name one white gang.
Hell's Angels,
No, that's like the Crips and the Bloods.
neo-Nazis marching in Nashville,
And
Tennessee.
where do you see the murder rate in a neo-Nazi group? I ain't never seen a neo-Nazi a day in my life.
They're marching in Nashville, Tennessee all the time.
And where's the violence? Who have they killed? Show me a murder statistic of the neo-Nazis. Okay, that's what I thought. Let's talk about the violence in gang. Let's talk about the gang violence. Are we willing to lie about the issue in the Black community of gang violence? These young dudes, let's look at the music. You look at rap music. We got a thing called drill music, where young brothers are rapping about murders that they are committing on a day-to-day basis. We see young men dead and lying dead in the middle of the street. Let's talk about the reason why sexual assault and murder is prosecuted at a different rate, or at least arrested at a different rate. Because when you have a dead brother laying right there on the ground, you have a plethora of evidence that you can see with your own eyes. Many times they're shooting people right in front of everybody, at parks, right in front of the club. I mean, so the evidence is there. That's why it's easier to prosecute people when you have a dead body. But sexual assault is stigmatized. Some people get assaulted and they don't want to tell anybody. It's a very different thing. You cannot compare the two. But you got to be disingenuous to say that gang violence and the violence that we experience in Black communities are somehow equal to what we see in other communities. It's just not happening.
And that's a fact. Officer Tatum, he's not lying about that at all. But here's the thing that I don't get about people who combat the issues, the real issues in the Black community. They look for answers, or no, they look to blame everything outside of the Black community. See, that's what the two on the left were doing. That's exactly what they were doing. They were coming up with excuses as to why the Black community is behind as far as it is. That's exactly what they were doing. We're solution-based. Yes, we like to speak on solutions. We like to come up with solutions, solve problems. But you have another side that likes to blame other people. They're victims. You know, the victim mentality. And they always turn everything about race. That's why she went into the neo, all of that, because it's always about race. Instead of speaking about the real problems that's plaguing the Black community, which Officer Tatum hit the nail on the head. It is the violence in the Black community. I grew up in it. I witnessed it. I was a part of it. Growing up, violence was nothing. In the Black community, violence is nothing. Y'all have to understand something. When you grow up in violence, you become numb to it. And that's exactly what is going on in the black community. That's why they are able to rap about it. That's why they don't care. They don't have no empathy for their enemies. They don't sympathize with anyone. It's all about themselves. The black community will continue to delete itself. Yes, these young black guys are going to continue to delete themselves. You want to know why? Because there's a majority of people in the black community who want to blame outside sources instead of starting in their own neighborhood. See, you have to understand something. You have to clean up the inside of your house first before you try to clean up the neighborhood. Until next time.
If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content.